My name is Benjamin Hunter.
I'm Joseph Seamons.
I think that's maybe the first time that we've introduced ourselves with our full first names.
True. Our group is called Ben Joe.
Well, yeah, or the Ben Joe Band, or Ben Hunter and Joe Seamons.
Or Ben Joe Music.
We are here at Millersylvania Park, State Park, and we are here in this beautiful old barn for the Roots in the Park series, which will be a series of stuff similar to what you're seeing right now, in a series format. So look forward to that. It's kind of a cool thing, you know, a silver lining of all of this, that we get to participate in these types of series that get to explore all these cool places and get us into nature.
Yeah. And we'd like to express our gratitude to Washington State Parks for making this possible. And yeah, just happy to learn that this amazing building exists, because we love wood. And I mean that quite literally. It's wonderful. And so we hope that you enjoy the music that we have to share with you today.
From our wooded instruments in this park. Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt. And thank you to the National Endowment of the Arts. You do so many great things.
Please continue to endow.
Please keep doing that, especially to PBS.
And to our parks and our artists nationwide.
Definitely to our artists, for sure. All you out there, keep on keeping on. We're going to play a few songs for you guys. We're going to open up this song with a song that I wrote called The Slippy, Slicky, Whimsy, Witty, Slow but Quickie, One and Only, Frank Malloy Breakdown. This is a song I wrote in honor of a friend of Joe and mine named Frank Malloy, who passed earlier this year in August at the ripe old age of 93, I believe. And he played the fiddle, violin, jazz, swing, old time, bluegrass, everything. He loved it. And he wrote beautiful songs and traveled up and down the East Coast with his brother playing these songs from his hometown in Georgia. He liked song titles with long names, so that's why I named it that. And so here's a little song dedicated to him. Slippy, slicky, whimsy, witty, slow but quickie, one and only, Frank Malloy Breakdown.
I am a musician that was weaned upon folk music played by my parents' friends. So I was hearing music around the campfires, at their parties, and of course hearing music on the tape deck in the car, driving around. And so one very formative album was Dog, Salmon, and Rutabagas, which was an album of folk music describing the logging and fishing culture of the people that I grew up around. And so that was a big part of my musical influence. And my mentors, Hobie Keiter and Dave Berge, taught me a lot about the tradition. And then I had the great good fortune to connect with a lot of musicians at the Port Townsend Acoustic Blues Festival who were very formative in how I got to develop from there on out and learning a lot of blues music and the culture that surrounds blues music. And so those are some of the main influences on my musical journey.
I was raised classically on the violin from the age of 6 and 6, and so that was most of my upbringing as a kid. However, I was really fortunate to have a mother that really loved to travel, and so lived in other parts of the world and traveled every chance we could, which opened up my eyes and ears to a lot of different musical and cultural styles. And so we were always listening to different music. And it wasn't until I got into college that I really started exploring what those different styles were, and that so many of those styles could be played on the violin, and that violin had such a powerful presence in so many styles of music around the world, and that there were different types of violins. I remember going to the Musical Instrument Museum in Paradise Valley in Phoenix, and it was such a surprise to think that a museum like this would exist in Phoenix. And I went there, and it was I think that really was life-changing to see the different styles and types of violins over the centuries that exist all over the world. And it got me kind of just thinking about my future with the instrument. And so I got my degree in music and have been trying to explore it and listen to it as much as possible and play it with other folks when I can. Joe and I met through a friend, one of my best friends from college. They met at a festival, and we started playing together on our different bands. And then Joe and I just had a different direction from the bands that we were in terms of like how we wanted to interpret American roots music and Americana music, and so we kind of formed this duo and dug our heels into as Joe said, hanging out with some of our great mentors that we met at the Acoustic Blues Festival and at Fiddle Tunes and at Folk Lifes and at different festivals and shindigs and parties around the country and eventually around the world. So that's what we do and who we are.
This song is adapted from a field recording made of 4 men singing together in an Atlanta, Georgia prison. I believe it was at Camp Morris. It was the name of it, and recorded by John Lomax. And this is our interpretation of their blues. A lot of blues you hear there's a single singer, and this was a 4-part harmony blues that they recorded in the prison about their captain, Captain Haney. And so this is dedicated to all of the people suffering in America's unjust injustice system that needs so desperately to be reformed. This goes out to all you that don't deserve to be there. It's Captain Haney Blues.
Woke up this morning, blues round my bed all alone. I woke up this morning, blues round my bed all alone. I went to eat my breakfast, and the blues was in my bread. She said, hey, Mr. Haney, don't work my man so hard, oh Lord. She said, hey, Mr. Haney, don't work my man so hard, oh Lord. I said he lives and he sleeps and he never had a job. I said, bye, bye, baby. I'll see you some rainy day, oh Lord. I said, bye, bye, baby. I'll see you some rainy day, oh Lord. Well, it may be in June, and it may be the 1st of May. I've been down so long, don't know what it means, oh Lord. I've been down so long, I don't know what it means, oh Lord. Have you ever been down? Well, you know just how it feels.
So, God, 6 years, maybe 7 as a duo?
Well, if one was to do the math on that from 2015 to now, it would be 5 years, maybe 6.
Okay, I think it was 2014, but who knows? You know?
I think it was.
Let the historians decide.
We've actually been playing music together since about 2013,
Right.
but we played as a duo together since about 2015. Our first album came out in 2015 or 14.
We are storytellers, not historians. One reason that our respective philosophies worked well was because we are both overly enthusiastic people who think that we can do 12 things at once, and also that Ben, with his classical training, was very good at learning melodies, and I, as a guitar player, was more oriented towards chords. So in general, at least for the first few years of our partnership, I would figure out the chords and Ben would figure out the melody, and then each one would teach the other thing to the other. And when we were able to teach each other anything, which was only sometimes.
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons that we did this is because we're both eager students as well as teachers, and so much of our when we first met and started playing music, we were also teaching kids at the same time. And a lot of the other people that we were playing music with, you know, were musicians and then worked as a cook, or musicians that worked at something else. They didn't teach. And so I think a lot of it was the idea of knowing that we were teachers and wanted to like figure out a way to bring this music to the classrooms that we were teaching in a better way. But also that we, you know, I think we're good teachers, and I think that good teachers generally also like to be students, and so we found ourselves in this really, I think, incredible opportunity to place ourselves at the feet of a lot of people that knew a lot of things about this music that could teach us that stuff, and I think we were eager to to play both of those roles, and it made sense playing both of those roles as students and teachers to also apply that to a duo that could interpret that in a professional way.
Yeah, and we had the great good fortune to be attracted to music and songs that were played by masters of the music that were approachable people, that were not super famous, and so you couldn't get through their entourage or whatever to talk to them. We liked music that we could just reach out and have conversations and meet with and hang out with people that we wanted to learn from. And then definitely, as Ben says, we have a great passion to just be a conduit between the elders and the youth, you know, and just try to it passes through us, and maybe we change it a little bit in the transmission, but we just really try to share the joy of the community that the music creates too. And so I think that's definitely community is a key part of our philosophy about the music.
This next song is a song that is probably the most popular out of any of the songs that we are playing for you right now, because with the exception of Captain Haney, they're originals that probably nobody's heard of. And probably not many of you have heard Captain Haney either. But this song is much more familiar. John Henry is the name of the tune. We got this version, though, from a couple of northern Mississippians, and Lucius Smith and Sid Hemphill. And they performed this song in kind of the hill country, old-time dance way. So, if you ever talk to Lucius Smith, so said his grandson, Hal Reed, he said, his grandpa never played the blues. He would have never said he played the blues. So this would have been dance music specifically, stuff to lift your soul. Although, I guess we play with a little bit of a lilt. The thing about John Henry, though, is that he was a real-time hero to a lot of people, and the reason that the song is so popular is because it was able to transfer itself from the railroad industry, where it was conceived, into the turpentine farms and the coal mines and the cotton farms, and where people were singing about the same thing, the same kind of like torture in terms of the labor that you were doing, but the idea that there was a machine out there that was going to take your place, that there was something out there that was going to make you obsolete, even though your pedigree in that whole process anyways was close to nothing. So this is a song, this is our version of another version of an old-time song of a real-life American hero, John Henry. hear that dog barking? Someone's round, someone's round. Do you hear that dog barking? Someone's round. And do you hear that peacock howling? It's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. Do you hear that peacock howling? It's gonna rain. Don't you bear me at the White House and take me home, take me home. Don't you bear me at the White House and take me home. And now my baby, she's the strong one, she keep it on, she keep it on. Now my baby, she's the strong one, you keep it on. Hammer, hammer, kill John Henry, let him alone, let him alone. Hammer, hammer, kill John Henry, let him alone. And hammer, hammer, kill my brother, he gon' need, he gon' need. And hammer, hammer, kill my brother, he gon' need.
I see the genesis of the Rhapsody Project as being twofold. One was that we realized that a lot of the things that we were taught later on in our music education, like things that were taught to us, we both studied music in different ways in college, and we thought, well, why did they wait until we were 18 to start to teach us these things? And so part of it was we thought that there were things that young people could be learning earlier, and then we also thought, wow, there's a lot of music that's left out of music education, and that music needs to be here so that students understand themselves as tradition bearers, as people who carry a heritage, and people who are developing and passing that onward down through the generations. And so I see that as two prime motivations for the Rhapsody Project. I maybe should have started with what is the Rhapsody Project? And the Rhapsody Project is a program of Community Arts Create, which is a nonprofit that Ben founded in 2010?
11.
In 2011 in Seattle. And so we have a program that's evolved over time, and we've just tried to teach students about the tradition, about themselves through the lens of the music, and just teaching them that music doesn't have to be a formal pursuit. It's great if it is, but it can also just be a social endeavor that helps the community come together and helps different generations see and hear one another more clearly. So at this point, we're with the Rhapsody Project, we're meeting semi-regularly with the students and preparing to take part in a Beethoven festival of all things. There's a Beethoven festival in Seattle that is interested in having us perform. So we'll be filming some songs with our students in early December of 2020 to share the ways in which traditional folk music has always informed the world of classical music, and to highlight that fact with things like the Bach double that was recorded by Eddie South and Stefan Grappelli, and then things, just telling stories of things like that folk melodies that composers such as Beethoven or Bartók incorporated into many of their works. So those are some of the things the Rhapsody Project is working on, in addition to just adapting to our new reality. We're adapting by trying to do a combination of outdoor hangouts like this one, in addition to Zoom meetings and the conventional approach that everyone is taking. And so we're trying to find a good balance so that students and their parents feel safe, and we feel like we're being responsible in terms of people not transmitting COVID, but then also trying to take as many lessons from it as we can and say, okay, well, even beyond when there may not be a pandemic anymore, what are the lessons from this experience that we can take? And certainly one of them is the reinforcing power of community, the power of community to support people in times of need and to look out for one another. And that music is just one dimension of that vital function.
This is a song dedicated to my great-grandfather, who was an English immigrant. He came over, he met his bride here in America, married her, and settled out in Fife, Washington, and in Pierce County. And so he set up some greenhouses, and so he was a florist. He grew and sold his own flowers. And so this is a made-up flower peddling song that I like to pretend has been passed down in my family for 4 generations. But really, I just wrote it about a week ago. And so this is called the Flower Peddler, and I believe his name was Arthur Seamons. So this goes out to Arthur.
The Seamons are a bunch of peddlers, though. That's what they did on the sea. That is pedal thing. 1, 2, 3.
I am the flower peddler, peddling petals by the score. Stems and stamens thrown in 3 by 3, I'll give you 4. Ecclesia formosa, that's Western Columbine. Got flowers for every letter, and mere sense will make them thine. I came from dreary England, make my home in Mary 5. Pierce County's where I lay my head with children and my wife. Balsamoriza sagitatas, aloe leaf balsam root. The peddler cultivates the seed and you receive the fruit. Calypso bilbosa's here, that's so melt in the spring. It's fairy slipper for your love and bound to make her sing. The peddler's trade is brisk today. To purchase, don't be slow. If you wish to share in this bounty, see my garden grow.
Cranium glariosum is larkspur from rock slides and bound to make your sweetheart laugh until he splits his sides. I am the flower peddler, peddling petals by the score, with stems and stamens thrown in 3 by 3. I'll give you 4.
I think the Pacific Northwest and really the West Coast, because, you know, California is so huge, it kind of incorporates it and then connects it. You know, there's all these big cities. So you have LA, you have San Francisco, you have Portland, you have Seattle, even Vancouver. And there's a lot of music coming out of these cities, and a lot of folk music, I think. Maybe I don't know what the boom is necessarily, if it's just that there's a huge amount of young people that are migrating to these cities for jobs and then find themselves interested in this music. Maybe the advent of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, or Mumford and Sons that brought it to people. There's also like a lot of festivals and workshops and opportunities for folks to learn this music and get together to do it. I think because the Pacific Northwest is really beautiful, and there's a lot of really beautiful and comfortable outdoor spaces, it's conducive for this type of, like, you know, jam session festival atmosphere that's you know, prevalent. You know, even like, not even like the big festivals, even though like the Northwest Folk Live Festival is one of the longest, more enduring and robust festivals, I think. You know, Centrum's opportunities that they have with acoustic blues and fiddle tunes, but also little things like the Subdued String Band Jamboree up in Bellingham, or what's that other jamboree that happens in Olympia?
The
Steamboat String Band Jamboree. You know, like little things like that, not to mention the other bluegrass festivals and other such things in the area. And I know that, you know, when Joe and I were playing together, when we first started playing together, you know, there was not a dearth of opportunities to jam with folks. You know, there was bars, there was jam sessions at bars and places like that, and then just houses. And I think in our heyday, you know, when we were younger and
Gigging all the time.
well, could handle the late night celebrational aspect of all the jamming. You know, there was, you know, on a folk life night, you know, there was like a couple hundred people that would come to a house over the course of 6 or 7 hours that we'd play music with every year that we knew, and would see each other in different parts of the country on different circuits and different festivals and different places. I think nerds stick together, and we're all, you know, that kind of music nerd that wants to learn from each other and wants to hang out and recognizes that its value.
On the issue of public lands, in doing the work of the Rhapsody Project and just having our parties together, at house parties and different settings, it just becomes ever more clear just how valuable it is to have viable cultural space that is readily available. And so for us, the significance of the parks, whether it's a special situation like what Fort Worden State Park does in hosting the Centrum Foundation's multiple festivals, or if it's an event like we're doing here in Millersylvania today, you know, there's so much need for, especially outdoor, but natural settings where people can gather, especially because so many people have been systemically denied that opportunity. And so, you know, we still have a lot of work to do culturally, in addition to in a legal sense, to make sure that these spaces are accessible to everyone. And you know, and Ben and I are also part of another project where it's a for-profit endeavor to try and establish cultural space in South Seattle called Black and Tan Hall. And so, you know, in addition to having those urban spaces, though, there also need to be a lot of rural spaces where people feel that they can come safely and have a barbecue or have a jam or have any sort of event they want to have. And so, and in addition to the protection, the environmental protection that a park can give a tract of land, you know, there's no end to the number of reasons that it's important to have accessible, beautiful public spaces that people can enjoy.
All right, everybody. This one is a Northwest folk song written by one of the, I think should be one of the most esteemed songwriters who captures the ethos and the spirit of the Pacific Northwest. That's Mr. Hobie Keiter. He's a musician for many years, was an advocate for gill netters, and is also just an amazing historian, walking encyclopedia of the working people since the Northwest has been colonized. And so Hobie Keiter lives down at the mouth of the Columbia River, and back in the 1970s he had a friend named John Connick, who was a fine songwriter and poet in his own right, to whom this song is dedicated. This is called Trees. And when John tragically passed in 1976, Hobie wrote this song to commemorate his life. And in the song, he also describes the life cycle of the forest. And so we're going to go through a little bit of taxonomy. But since Hobie wrote the song back in the late 1970s, the taxonomic term for the Douglas fir has changed. It is no longer Pseudotsuga taxifolia,
It doesn't make sense anyways for that to be. It
according to Ben.
doesn't even make sense.
It's now Pseudotsuga menziesii.
Which makes much more sense.
So apologies to all of you sticklers for taxonomy out there. I'm sticking with the original lyrics. And the other one you need to know is the western red cedar, which is Thuya plicata.
Obviously.
So we're going to sing about those, and we're going to sing about John Connick, who, when he was, when he passed, his friends buried him out in outside of where he lived with his wife Kim, out at the end of the Kesey route, and they planted an apple tree there to mark where he lay. And so this is a song about his life, and we're going to trace the life cycle of the forest from the alder to the Doug fir to the western red cedar. This is Trees. One, two, three.
It's them old rubber boots, boys, or the mud and the rain. You can take your city slickers and go down in the drain. I swear this country living only get the best of me. And if my roots go long enough, just might turn into a tree. Now the alder, she is pretty, boy, but she grows oh so fast. And so like men of little years, or she does not come to last. And yet she is the mother of the forest that she made. When at first she is outdistanced from what grew up in her shade. Now they cut down all the old growth, boys, that there was to be got. And some it was for profit, oh, but some it was for naught. And we who did not see it know it only by its wood. And so saw but did not see, and saw and say it's good. Pseudotsuga taxifolia, oh, I love you very well. And Thuya plicata, oh, no human tongue can tell. But he who loves the lumber must better love the tree. There's an apple in the meadow where the lupin it does grow. Down there lies a poet buried 6 feet below. And if you should eat an apple which that Gravenstein supplied, won't you stop and take a rest, boys, and think on one who died? Now my name is nothing extra, so that I will not tell. But here's to all you lovers, oh, I'm sure I wish you well. But when you're in the woods, boys, won't you stop and look around and thank that tree for its life before you lay it on the ground. It's them old rubber boots, boys, for the mud and the rain. You can take your city slicker and go down in the drain. I swear this country living gonna get the best of me. And if my roots go long enough, just might turn into a tree.
We're going to break down a song for you. The song is Trees by Hobie Keiter. And this is a folk song to my mind, but a lot of hardcore traditionalists would not think it's a folk song because it was not written by an anonymous source and it was only composed 40 years ago. So not of old enough vintage. But in my community, people sing it, and to me, that means that, people sing it for non-commercial purposes. That, to my mind, is a folk song. So we can argue about that all day if you like.
You can buy it on our album, though.
Yeah, we'd rather you buy it than you argue. But if you want to argue, find us on social media or something where people do those sort of things. Anyhow, we're going to talk about the song itself and then the instrumental parts that we would develop for the song. So the first thing to acknowledge is that Hobie Keiter adapted this melody from Ramblin' Jack Elliott, who sang a version of Diamond Joe that had this melody. And then Hobie adapted it to the banjo, whereas Ramblin' Jack was singing and playing the guitar. And so the source is that version of Diamond Joe. I don't know what source Ramblin' Jack took for his version of Diamond Joe. So that gets the melody out of the way. But what Hobie decided was, I think because he liked to sing it in F, that he was going to play an F on the banjo. And this is where things get interesting. So there's a thing that really skilled banjo players do when they need to play a fiddle tune in F, where they play an open C tuning. That's G. Sorry, it's usually G, C, G, C, D. But then they tune the G string up to an A, or they tune it to another place. And in this case,
Down to an F?
Down to an F, right.
They would
Down to an
probably
F,
tune it
thank
down
you.
to an F, yeah.
They would have the drone string ringing on an F. Hobie thought it sounded cooler to tune his G string, what I usually play as G, up his drone string up to an A. So you have the third of the chord. F is the root, A is the third, C is the fifth. You have the third ringing in the drone string all the time. And then you play this shape, which is kind of gnarly until you get used to it, to play your one chord, to play your F. So I have my F, I have an A, I have the C string ringing open, and I have F, again up here. And then I have A ringing. So it gives this really interesting sound to the frailing, because you have the third ringing all the time.
So that's part of what makes Hobie's arrangement of this melody so interesting, is that you have that arrangement on the banjo. And then a few other chords that we'll talk about when we get into the mandolin part that have been developed.
Harmonically, that's really cool, right? Because, you know, your first and your fifth note are kind of the foundation for any song, or for any chord, and that you prioritize the third gives it this like mysterious, unattainable kind of aspect to it, like the tops of trees.
Yeah. So
Not to get too romantic with the language, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's a little heavenly, isn't it?
yeah, it's uplifting. So we have that major third
I wouldn't
ringing
say it's
all the
uplifting.
time.
I wouldn't say it's uplifting, but
It's unusual. It's kind of mystical, I
it's
think.
mystical. Yeah.
And so then you play you play a D minor against that, which also has the A in it. But then you play a B flat chord, which really does not at all have that A in it. That sound that makes that into a B flat 9 chord basically. Anyhow, so that's harmonically what's going on. And then you have your single note melody. And so to grow upon Hobie's part, you know, and I want to pause here. So say that you're learning off of a recording, or you don't, like I have, access to the person who made the song. And you can't just be like, hey, how do you do that? Because I don't think I would have ever figured it out without having been able to talk to him. There's two ways to approach it. One, which is really good, is to listen to it over and over and over again and experiment. And that strengthens your ear. And the other way is to reach out to someone else who's got real big ears, as they say, as they say in music land, and you say, hey, what do you think is going on here? So for me, music land these are technical terms you don't need to worry about. For me, I would reach out to a musician that has bigger ears than I and could say like, it sounds like that drone string is the third, so why don't you try this tuning? And you know, you go down that path. And that's cool, right? Because it makes you connect with more musicians to understand the song. And then you get their take on what's happening harmonically in the song. So ideally, you reach out to the source. If the source is not available to you, you find some other like mentors who can help you figure it out. And hopefully, as you go on in your career, you need to reach out to others less and less, and you get better and better at growing your ears and figuring it out yourself. So that aside, I really tried to copy Hobie's banjo part because I think it's beautiful and I love it. And the thing that I added to it was this part that I actually screwed up in our recording. But I'm going to demonstrate it now. And it's the same melody and an octave higher. So the melody starts like this. And so forth. So up here, that sounds like. Okay, so I have my F chord now is sounding here. So I can play it up here. So I figured out by ear just all the notes and then the shapes that could surround the notes to make that melody work an octave higher. And then that brings us to Ben's part on the mandolin. The original recording that Hobie made is with his friend Dave Berge. Dave Berge is singing a vocal harmony and playing the guitar. It's really hard to do David's guitar part, and we didn't want to just completely carbon copy Hobie and Dave's version, so Ben tried a lot of instruments and settled on the mandolin. So Ben, what was your approach to doing the mandolin on this song?
Well, I think one of the interesting things about doing a mandolin, or at least a resonator mandolin, even, like not even just a regular mandolin, but a resonator mandolin, and a banjo, is that you're dealing with two really loud instruments. The banjo has a much shorter sustain sound, but it's punchy, and it has a very specific timbre. And so it didn't make sense for me when listening to this song, and we tried a lot of different things. It's a really hard song to think about accompanying. And so instead of playing chords in the background, which, you know, might be more common, especially like in a bluegrass kind of like way with a mandolin, you know, you'd have like that kind of like chuck sound that you maybe do.
That just doesn't feel right for the
It just didn't feel that right, and playing chords behind it seemed like it was taking up too much space, like it was really full. And like to kind of piggyback off of, or to, I guess, add a little bit more to that whole like mysticism of the third note on the bottom, or like the drone for the banjo, leaving the notes very sparse, kind of like how they come out of the banjo, was something that I wanted to match. So what I do is I mostly just play a bunch of lines, but in the same fashion, or in the same rhythmic fashion that he plays on the banjo, which is basically just a bunch of eighth notes, or maybe even 16th notes. But in doing that, it creates this kind of almost like they're bells or something. There's a sparseness to it, and because it's a resonator mandolin, notes seem to sustain themselves a little bit longer. So it kind of creates this heavenly kind of otherworldly sound, which I think is really cool for the song, because we're talking about trees, which, I don't know, if you really want to get into the magic of it, is otherworldly, especially in the way that we live today, you know, with concrete cities and everything is mechanized. Often I think getting off into the wilderness takes you off into another world, even more so than like what you think it does. Like looking at a postcard, you know, you want to go to the wilderness because you want to get out of the city or whatever, but there's something very magical to the thing. Not to like get too philosophical into it, but
These are the things we think about.
and it's stuff that you should think about. I mean, songs shouldn't just be, you make them whatever you want, but I think the beautiful thing about music and making songs is that you have this other opportunity to convey an emotion with sound. And so you want to pay a lot of close attention to the sound that you're making. And when I teach technique for any instrument, it's really important to think about your right hand. You know, I think often we just think about how fast we can play a note or how much we can bend a note or all that kind of stuff, but also the attention that you pay to your right hand, to the touch, to the feel of the sound that you're trying to make is really important. And so what I wanted to do, or what sounded right after a lot of kind of messing around with it, was just playing these lines. And so I'm for the most part finding parallel harmonies for what Joe's doing on the banjo, so that I can kind of weave myself in and out of what he's doing and kind of like emphasize that little line and then kind of fold myself back into the same range as his banjo, so that I kind of disappear, but then I come back again, you know, maybe in a lower tone. The key to being able to do that is to know my scales, right? And so knowing your F scale would be great to start, and then figuring out how to play the pentatonic or like the blues version of it by being able to bend your third and your seventh in interesting ways that fit the melody. And that's just, you know, being able to go up and down on your fingerboard all the way. And then all of those notes can kind of find themselves in what he's doing. So that's kind of my approach to this.
So to recap a little bit, getting at when you think about developing an arrangement to a song, thinking about what is the mood of the song, what is the song trying to say, what instruments do you have available to you, and which sounds will serve the meaning and the mood of the song, right? Hobie found a cool tuning on the banjo that matched this kind of mournful story about his friend who had passed away, but also captured a little bit of the majesty of the forest growing up and the different phases of the life cycle of the forest. And then, you know, Ben and I did a lot of experimentation and listening to figure out what's the right combination of instruments to support what's going on in the song. I want to follow up on what Ben was talking about in terms of the mysteriousness or the mysticalness or whatever you want to call the mood and the spirit of the song, because I think it's important that we pay a lot of respect in the music to the fact that while we live in a world that should be more science-based and that reality is very important, that in art we should embrace the mystery of things, and we should try to create space for the imagination. So like when Ben's saying that he doesn't want to play chords on the mandolin and he doesn't want to take up a lot of space in the music, that's because part of our job, I think, in making the song work is to create space for your imagination. So we're trying to create a mood or an atmosphere where there's room for you as the listener in there. And so if you're somebody who's studying this music, be respectful of that, and be respectful that there is mystery in the music, and that you don't want to get rid of the mystery. You want to almost accentuate it because it's a beautiful thing. So
And the last thing to say is that I didn't say that the technique that I'm doing is frailing technique or claw hammer. And so there's lots of tutorials you can find online on how to do claw hammer technique. And we thought it'd be more interesting to go into the weeds of a different part of this song. So I think in closing, again, it's Hobie Keiter's song, but it's a young traditional song. It's a fresh Northwest traditional song that I think people will be singing for a long time because it's an amazing song, and it reflects the land that we live on in a powerful way. So that's what I'd like to say about trees.
His closing is different than my closing in that, yes, be respectful to the songs, but let's just remember that Hobie stole this song melody from somebody else and then put his own lyrics to it. And that's okay too. Mm-hmm. And because it's not that he just put his own lyrics to it, but he wrote something that was very important and significant to him, which was his friend, but also this relationship that he has to trees and the importance that trees have in his life in the Pacific Northwest, which is something that he writes about a lot. So, as part of the workshop, if you want to write songs and if you're having trouble writing songs, steal them from other people and then rewrite them. And I know that sounds really bad to say it like that, but here's the thing. Somebody asked Louis Armstrong, or no, who was it? No, it wasn't Louis Armstrong. It was, I think it was Leadbelly. That somebody asked him, let me show you this. Can you teach me this lick? And he said, no, but you can steal it if you like. But I'm not showing you anything. I might have gotten my people wrong on who did that. But that's the point. Is that with this whole folk music tradition, it's an oral tradition, which is like you're supposed to steal it, but it's not stealing. You're supposed to take it and reconstitute it and make it something that reflects your own life. So do that, and that's what this workshop is also about.
Definitely. Make it your own. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye. See you later. This was fun.